So electron affinity, if you have to define this in very simple terms, so we should say this. Let me state this definition first. The amount of energy that is released. You see, I'm using the word released because if electron has to add in an atom spontaneously, not always necessary it will be spontaneous process, that's another thing, but I'm saying that suppose if it is added to an atom, let's say this is a nucleus and this is the outermost shell. Suppose if the electron is being added in this, and if the electron is easily taken in, why it should be easily taken in? Suppose if the nucleus is able to take in this electron easily, then it becomes a spontaneous process, and in the spontaneous process energy must be released. Amount, that's why this definition when I'm writing by considering spontaneity of electron addition. Okay, by definition when we say atom, it is a neutral entity, otherwise we call it as ion, right? So suppose if the electron is coming in the vicinity and if it is easily taken in, it can happen, right? It can happen in the case like chlorine, all those electronegative element, they can take electron very easily, right? So I'm talking about those kind of element where the process is spontaneous right now, but of course somewhere you may have to force, that is where it will become non-spontaneous, and that is where we have to consider differently. We will see that, but right now we are starting with the simplest case. So the simplest case will be to consider the process as spontaneous one. Addition of electron can be spontaneous in many of the element because electronegative element tend to attract electron easily. Okay, let me complete the definition. The amount of energy that is released when an electron is added to an isolated gaseous atom. Okay, isolated gaseous atom means I'm talking about always single atom of an element, that's called electron affinity. Electron affinity is also referred to as electron, now I am writing this, electron gain enthalpy. I have introduced you a term called enthalpy which will come up little later, but consider for time being whenever I say enthalpy means I am also still talking about energy. Okay, so these are various terms, sometime any of them can be used, so you should not be confused. Energy which is associated with gaining an electron, or affinity, electron affinity, it is simply called as electron affinity. It is generally abbreviated as EA. Okay, EA. Or enthalpy, in terms of enthalpy term you will find this symbol delta H, electron gain enthalpy, so we call it as EG, electron gain enthalpy, that means delta H EG. I will simply take the example of, let's say, chlorine. For example, I am talking about the element where the process is much more easier and it is spontaneous in terms of taking in electron. For example, chlorine. Okay, suppose this chlorine is in the gaseous state atom. Okay, at normal temperature you don't have chlorine in the gaseous state, right? You know that it is Cl2. But let's say I created a gaseous form of this by heating the chlorine gas and breaking the bond, so I have an isolated chlorine atom. Now this chlorine atom is highly, suppose if there is an electron available to it, it will immediately take in. Okay, it will immediately take in and then it will form Cl minus ion, and that could also be in the gaseous state, and then in this process some amount of energy will be released. So this energy which is released is called as electron affinity. Okay, this is energy, or let me not write as electron affinity here, because let me use the symbol Q, the general symbol for energy, or let's say you measure in terms of enthalpy or heat, you call it as Q. So this is electron affinity. affinity, or in other term you also represent by symbol delta H E G. Just keep these symbols in mind, okay, so that you are clear about them. But now you are saying that this energy is released, that means this is represented as negative value. You know that, right? I should say electron affinity is equal to minus Q. That this is how I write, where I say Q is the magnitude and minus sign represents that it is being released. So wherever the sign is there, the sign means either it is being taken in or it is being released. Chlorine is easy. I talked about there is only one electron that you have to add to fulfill the the need for octet configuration, and that is very simple. And we also know that chlorine is electronegative, so it takes in electron. Well, what about oxygen? Let's say oxygen is also here as a gas, okay, but then you can add one electron because this is also electronegative. You all understand oxygen is also electronegative in periodic table, so it also tends to take electron, and then it forms O minus, okay, and then it gives out some amount of energy. I will exactly write down the value. It's about 142 kilojoule per mole. This is the value of energy in 1 mole of this system. This much amount of energy will be released. Fine, no problem. It makes sense because we understand that it is the amount of energy that should be released when an electron is taken spontaneously. All these processes that we are talking about is a spontaneous intake of electron. So spontaneous process always tend to release energy, correct? We understand that. But we know that oxygen has a valency of 2, because to fulfill its electronic configuration as octet configuration, it requires 2 electrons. That means it must take in 1 more electron. But let's see what is the scenario when it has to take in 1 more electron. This is oxygen minus now as gas, and if you have to add 1 more electron, the problem is now this oxygen, which was neutral earlier, it was easier for the electron to come in. After the addition of first electron, let me label this as first electron here just to make a distinction, and this as a second electron. After the addition of this first electron, this oxygen has become negatively charged. That means more and more spherical region has become negatively surrounded, okay, although it tends to acquire 1 more electron because that is how it will become octet, okay, but at the same time it has become more negative in terms of its charge. Now think about this electron already has a negative charge, so then there will be definitely a clash, in the sense there will be a repulsive force. Of course this should be drawn by the nucleus. Dekho, the nucleus has a tendency to accept an electron in this, right, but the outer surface is more of a negative cloud. The nucleus of atom of oxygen, it wants to draw the electron, but because outermost surface is more of a negative cloud, it tends to not accept the electron easily, okay. So to be easily getting into the system, it must overcome this kind of repulsion, and then that means you must force the electron to cross this barrier or cross this repulsive force, and you do this basically by providing energy. So second electron's acceptance in oxygen actually happens only with the intake of energy. You will see little later when you study in your 12th class, there is something called as activation energy, okay. I think I talked about at some time. In some of the processes to initiate, you need to provide a little bit of energy, and after that the process becomes spontaneous by itself, but initially you need to provide some energy. So it is something similar to that here. The second process is not immediately, it will not happen by itself. You need to provide some energy, and you will be surprised that it requires really a much more amount of energy than this amount of energy, kilojoule per mole, and then it gives you O2 minus gas. Now you see that the net process, if you look at, for the formation of O2 minus from O, if you write down here O gas, you will sum up this one, 2 electron, okay, and then you subtract this from this, then net value will be on this side only. So you will have 600 and how much it will 560 kilojoule per mole, Okay, I'm just simply adding the two equation. You simply add these two equation, okay, this equation with this equation, then you will see that this one remains here, this electron means 2 electron, this on the opposite side, so the net value will be positive on this side because this is higher value, so 560. This one and this one will cancel on each side, okay, on the equation, and the remaining one on the other side will be only O2 minus gas. So this is the net equation, net process. So net process of formation of O2 minus, if it was considered in its part, it seems to be, you see that now the electron gain energy is positive. You provide 2 electron and the oxygen is there, so little bit of energy if you provide 560, it will take in the 2 electron, because this oxygen atom has a tendency to accept the electron because it wants to form this O2 minus, okay, to complete the octet. That's why it's taking an electron, but you need to provide some amount of energy to overcome this attraction. This is the value of electron affinity for the net equation, that means resultant. So EA, just like we added the equation, we also have to add the energy values, and that will be EA is equal to EA1 plus EA2, and that should be 5 plus value of 560 kilojoule per mole. Okay, let me say this: non-metals are regarded as electronegative. Anyway, electronegativity term will come, electronegative. Why? Because they tend to take an electron, correct? Oxygen, chlorine, nitrogen and all these things. But then metals are regarded as electropositive. Now, if I want positive, I can call metals, non-metals as more electronegative, metals as less electronegative. This is one way to discuss. Or I can talk about metals more electropositive and non-metals less electropositive. But if I want to discuss both of them simultaneously, I can just take in, they are complementary term. Electropositivity and electronegativity, they are complementary term. If I want, I can just choose one of them and still be able to talk about the same property. If I choose this one, I can still be able to talk about the same property. Did you follow? Electronegativity means tendency to take electron. Electropositivity means tendency to lose electron. Metals have tendency to lose electron, but non-metals have less tendency to lose electron but gain electron. Gain means they have less tendency to take electron. So it is like complementary. Do you understand? So I'm just taking one term here and discussing both kind of aspects. In fact, you can see that right now I have not even discussed the metal thing here, only the non-metal. But I'm saying even within the non-metal, you will encounter the situation where the electron cannot be spontaneously taken in. So one part of the process is like a non-spontaneous. How do you then reflect on this? So you have to provide the energy, and once you provide, the net process is this definitely, and the net process seems where electron affinity is positive. Okay, let's look at what are the factors they will affect the activation energy. This electron affinity. So we have discussed the definition, we have considered also some of the example, and that is where we understand the meaning of this affinity better. Now let's again discuss the factors which are responsible for affecting the value of activation energy. Just like we discussed the factors affecting ionization energy. Factors affecting electron affinity or value. I could even say that electron affinity value. You will find a similarity in terms of factors that are going to be discussed here, very much similar to what we have discussed for ionization potential. So you will be able to relate. Remember, we are talking more or less opposite process to what we are discussing in terms of ionization energy. Okay, the process involved are a little bit opposite, so you will find that the effect will be also a little bit opposite. So first factor I will just discuss the charge on nucleus or nuclear charge. Let's say we are discussing the electron affinity of an element, certain element. Okay, factors affecting electron affinity of an element, for any element that we are talking in general. Okay, right now we should discuss this by considering, let's say, non-metal first. It'll be easier, and then we can relate to metals also. So nuclear charge, I told in the last class also, in one of the previous classes, that the nuclear charge, this force of attraction, or let's say the force which is responsible for the electron to be taken in, is directly proportional to the nuclear charge, and also it is proportional to electron charge, but I am saying electron charge is fixed. So the charge of nucleus may vary when you are either going across a period or down a group, because we are going to discuss the trend, right? So nuclear charge is one factor that will be responsible when you are going across a period, and then going down a group. This is like going down a group. Okay, so this is one factor we will consider. Please see, what do you think should happen? Just consider only one factor is not enough. Let me consider the another, because the size becomes a very important factor, and we know that from Coulomb's law, this F is not alone dependent on this, but it also depends upon the atomic radius, right? So the second factor and first factor we should discuss together, because they are related to each other very easily in the same formula. So another is atomic size or atomic radii. Okay, atomic size or atomic radii. So F is inversely proportional to square of the distance. You know that. That means one factor opposes the other factor. It's like that. But we have to consider the combination of the two. What do you think happens when you are moving across a period? When you are moving across a period, the size of the atom is almost constant, right? Because the next shell is not added, or a little bit shrinkage is there, but the atomic number increases. That means you will think that therefore combination of the two should lead you, if you consider the combination of the two, then across a period electron affinity should increase. That means more and more energy should be released when you go across a period, right? Because the electron is welcomed. Okay, electron is welcome. But if you go down a group, this is period here, then down a group, then what do you think should happen? Because nuclear charge is increasing, no doubt. Okay, drastically the nuclear charge will increase from sodium to your potassium, remember, and or other, let's say, sodium, potassium, rubidium. But at the same time, the next electron that has to be added is farther and farther away from the nucleus. Like in this diagram, in the first slide here, I will go back to this representation. Here you can look at this one. When you are going this way, you can see that the electron that has to come in, that has to come only in the second shell. But I am saying that when you are going down a group, your new electron has to come in away and away from the nucleus. So nuclear charge is increasing and also the distance is increasing. So there is a contradictory factor. The increasing charge should attract the electron easily, but so more electron affinity, but at the same time electron is being added in the away and away from the nucleus. That means the electron affinity should decrease from the second factor. So there is a fighting between the two factors. Then which factor should dominate? That is decided by the third factor, which is the screening effect. You can see that if you have more and more new electron added away from the nucleus, there are more and more screening effect. So this screening effect will shield the last electron to be added from the nuclear charge. So the effect of nuclear charge will be reduced. That's why when you go down a group, the tendency to accept the electron decreases. That's why the metals, okay, even if you consider the first group of metals, which is like this one, lithium, sodium, potassium, okay, you know that compared to lithium, sodium can release the electron easily. Compared to sodium, potassium can release the electron easily, right? Because the tendency is less. Okay, so definitely when you say that the electron can be released, that means it cannot take in electron easily. Opposite process is like taking electron in. That's what we are discussing for electron affinity. If it cannot take in electron, then electron affinity is less and less negative. So if you talk about when you go across a period, okay, we are considering the two factors together. What do you think is more tentative? When you go electron affinity increases, that means, or I should say, it is becoming more and more negative. Instead of saying increase, I should say more and more negative. More and more negative value. More negative means more and more released value, correct? But if you go down a group, you can say that electron affinity is less and less negative. You see, I'm talking the same thing where the tendency to accept the electron decreases, but I'm saying in terms of becoming less and less negative, or it may even become zero, or it may even become positive, where you have to force the electron to get in. Okay. The third thing that is also actually most of the time is in combination is a screening effect, which is also I just talked about. When you go down to the period then going down a group, then the screening effect also dominates, because when you're going down a group, the screening effect dominates. Screening effect dominates more powerfully. Okay, this is what it means. That's why although the nuclear charge is increasing, atomic distance is also increasing, and that will leading to screening effect getting dominated. So the third factor that we have to talk about is a screening effect. You have a nucleus here, and these are, let's say, shells, okay, and let's say the last electron has to be added here. So this incoming electron is feeling the screening effect of all these inner electrons which are occupying certain spaces. Now even among the inner electrons, some of them might have occupied the s orbital, some of them might have occupied the p orbital. So the electron which are in the s orbital, they will bring the more screening effect. Electron in the p orbital here, inner electron, they will bring the more screening effect. So I should not discuss this one, but I am saying that the screening effect of various orbital is s orbital will cause more of screening effect than p orbital, then d orbital, and so on, correct? So this is the screening effect of various orbitals or the electron present in them. Okay, if the same electron is present in p orbital, it will cause less screening than the same electron is present in the s orbital. In the inner, we are talking about inner orbital, inner electrons, inner electrons. This is inner electron story here. Okay, the role of inner electron, and that is understood. The next thing that I was trying to discuss here is penetrating effect of the orbital. See, all these things could not be discussed in your 10th class, although you may have studied this one, because you did not have the idea of this type of orbital, right? That is where our revision is completely with the new picture. Okay, so here I am saying that penetrating effect of various orbitals. Consider again, let's say an electron in the s orbital, an electron being added here now, outer electron being added to s orbital, versus the electron to be filled in p orbital. This versus this, where do you think the electron affinity will be higher? Can anybody say? S has more penetrating effect, right? Because S is more close to the nucleus, so the electron which is coming in s orbital, it will be more powerfully attracted by the nucleus. So if you have to consider, let's say, electron affinity here for this particular case, suppose if you consider this particular case, and let's say if I say electron affinity because of this addition is ES, and let's say because of this addition the electron affinity should have been, let's say, P, then I should say that this one is more negative value than this one. Okay, because this is more negative, means more energy is released, but in this case the energy will be released, but let's say I say that 100 kilojoule per mole is released here. In this case it could be 50 kilojoule per mole, but in both the cases it is released, so both are negative, but I am saying that this value is more negative. For example, I say that, suppose I say minus 100 kilojoule per mole. And here I say, for example, minus 50 kilojoule per mole, for example. Okay, in both the cases the energy is released, but which is more negative value, more energy released, more energy, more negative? This one, because here the electron is more powerfully drawn to the nucleus. So penetrating effect of the orbital will also affect the value of electron gain, enthalpy or electron affinity, and always this orbital has more penetrating effect than p orbital, then d orbital, and then f orbital. Okay, so you have to consider this also in mind. And the last factor, which is again familiar to you, is the symmetry of electronic configuration. Symmetry of electronic configuration. As discussed in previous classes, you already know that the half-filled orbital, completely half-filled orbital, let's say if I say P3 or D5, or completely filled orbital like P6, D10, they are more symmetric than any other electronic configuration. So they are more symmetric than other electronic configurations in the same orbital, right? Let's say P2 versus P3. P3 is more symmetric. Okay, like that I am saying. So these are more symmetric electronic configuration. More symmetric electronic configuration means there is almost a very little tendency to accept electron in this. Okay, I am saying that if this kind of electronic configuration already exists with the atom, where do you think, okay, let me take the example here, where do you think are the element where you have this kind of electronic configuration? It's easier to locate. You know the noble gases which have P6, noble gases, for example, neon has electronic configuration of helium type, then 2s2 P6. You see already symmetric electronic filling here. That's why the incoming electron will not be welcomed further. You understand? Now to prepare, suppose of a negative ion, you have to force the electron again, and that means their electron affinity should be either 0 or highly positive. Highly positive, because you have to provide the energy, not, it is not going to be released. Okay, so it is highly positive. Either it could be 0 or it could be highly positive. So that's the meaning of this, because electron is not going, addition of electron is not welcomed, so no release of energy. And another scenario which I can talk about is this is how you understand that if the symmetric electronic configuration exists with an element, there is almost positive or very less negative or 0 value of electron affinity or highly positive value of electron affinity. But halogen situation is that it wants to acquire at least one electron to become like noble gas. So there the electron configuration is like this one. For example, if I talk about Cl, and it has electronic configuration of neon 3s2 3p5. So you see that p orbital, if it gets one electron, it becomes symmetric like P6. And if it becomes P6 symmetric orbital, then that means the incoming electron is welcomed. The incoming electron must be welcomed, and welcome means it must release the electron affinity for this scenario. The electron affinity for this scenario should be highly negative. Highly negative means more energy will be released easily. Highly negative. That's why in the entire periodic table, all the halogens have very highest electronegativity. Okay, because halogens have very high tendency to accept electron. You know that, right? So the electron affinity for halogens is highly negative. And I'm saying that for noble gases, the electron affinity is almost 0 or highly positive, because you can't, they are not welcoming electron. Now the situation about metal is also similar to somewhere here, because there also the electrons are not welcome. So there also the electron affinity will be either 0 or highly positive or very less negative value. This is what I am trying to say here in today's class, and I would like to give you a simple task to you. What you do is today you go back and then try to look at the electronic configuration of, let's say again, the element that we have discussed as exceptional cases like beryllium and nitrogen and magnesium, and try to examine the electronic configuration of this. What we did the last class, similarly just look at this electronic configuration. Do this by yourself today and you tell me tomorrow, and in fact I will say that the electron affinity for these are positive, very close to positive, or very less negative, very less negative. In fact they are not at all negative, they are all positive value. So why is that? That's the question may be asked, and you should be able to answer based on the electronic configuration and consider all the factors discussed above. Consider electronic configuration of beryllium, nitrogen and magnesium. Also examine the electronic configuration. We just examine here for this halogen and also the noble gases. Okay, so please take up this part. It is less and less negative, so they go off the trend. Okay, that's the whole thing I'm trying to point out. I want to point out some exceptions. Sometimes they are observed. You know that in the whole of the periodic table, your period number 2, these elements, you know, they have a little bit of exceptional properties. These properties are mainly attributed because of their little bit really tinier size. Okay, because in the periodic table, if you look at this element in the second group, they are really very tiny. Then you may ask the question, okay, so what? How does that matter? Because anyway systematically the size is increasing. Yes, we understand that, but thing is that there is something called as electron density that we are also talking about. So think about this one. Well, if you look at the trend of electron and gain energy, which is this one, you see that chlorine has, let's say right now here shown as minus 349. Actually in the periodic table this is really very high value, in the sense very high negative, more and more negative. What I written here, this is really the most negative value you will find. Okay, so that means because chlorine has it welcomes electron easily and the process of electron gain is spontaneous, so a lot of energy is released. Okay, what do you think when you go down a period, go down this group, sorry not period but this group itself, 17 group. So I said this general trend in for any group, whether it is a metal or non-metal, electron affinity becomes less and less negative. Why? Simply because your size of these atoms increase, number one, size increase, and also the last electron which is incoming, it will feel more power of nucleus because the nucleus size is increased. But I said that the screening effect is much more powerful. So many electrons are shielding this nucleus from this incoming electron, so the attraction is not that great, and that's why this electron, when it is taken in here, for example the chlorine's case, it will be immediately taken in and a lot of energy will be released. So its electron affinity you expect to be more and more negative, versus the electron affinity of the element here in the same group down, which has bigger size, and then the electron experiences, incoming electron experiences more and more shielding, so less energy will be released. You can see here, and there is a trend here. You can see that the electron affinity becoming less and less negative. You see that? But if you look at the fluorine, then what do you say about this? The question arises this. You can see that the general trend is like this. This seems to be the highest, but actually speaking, fluorine should have the highest value, right? Because it is even tinier. It is even tinier. Suppose if I had to consider the electron being added in fluorine in the outermost shell, incoming electron has to be added to the second shell. No problem. There is no problem. Why should then this value should differ? Compared to this one, the change in the size from here to here is really quite big, from fluorine to chlorine. Okay, fluorine has last 2s2 2p5, and chlorine has 3s2 3p5. So the incoming electron here is being added to p orbital, no doubt. Here also in the p orbital. But the thing is that this space is like a very tiny space, because the size of fluorine or any element actually in the second period, the size is really very tiny. Does that mean the electron will not go at all? No, it will go. It is definitely being drawn by the nucleus here, no doubt. But the problem is this electron will face much more huge crowding and repulsion by already existing electron in this p orbital than the electron which are present in the chlorine. That means the density of packing of electron is not that high compared to as if you find it here. Okay, so that's why what happens, the one factor that dominates in this particular second period is a much more crowding of electron. This is a very unique thing and it leads to unique set of properties. The lithium compounds are generally little bit covalent in nature, but generally all the other metal in the first group, they lead to only ionic bond formation, right? So these are exceptional kind of unique properties you will keep finding across this particular period. So anyway, we'll talk about them little later, but I'm saying that the fluorine here, because of very small size, the incoming electron feels much more repulsion. Okay, so this is the difference I'm trying to make here. And after that, there is no problem here. You know, there is a little bit freer space in all of them. Anyway, this space is increasing, so that factor starts decreasing then. But in case of fluorine, so electron is welcome very powerfully because the size is very small, no doubt. Size is small, electron is drawn very powerfully by the nucleus. But at the same time, I am saying because of the closeness of all these electron, the electron also feels some considerable repulsion by the existing electron, and that's why you can see that compared to chlorine, the fluorine has little less negative value of electron gain energy, of course. So you have to be able to understand and explain this. A trend is seen here. Do you see that? Oxygen has minus 141, this sulfur has minus 200, and then again it goes down. Yes, it's the same story again. See, among all the metals, the first group element are the most metal. Okay, most in the sense they carry the property of the metal. They are the most metallic element. If you consider the non-metals, these are the most powerful non-metals, right? Why I'm saying powerful? See, these elements are also generally regarded as non-metal, but I'm saying the reactivity wise, chemically reactive, if you consider, these are the most powerful reactive metals and these are the most powerful reactive non-metals. And we know that the metal can react with non-metal generally. For example, sodium and chlorine, when they are brought together, they will explode and then form sodium chloride, correct? That's a powerful reaction because chlorine is dying to take an electron, sodium is dying to give electron. Okay, so when they are closer to each other, they will form sodium chloride. So let's say if I don't want to consider even the radioactive element, I can consider cesium. So formation of cesium fluoride from cesium and fluorine should be the most violent reaction. These two things we have just discussed. The third thing I'm talking about is electronegativity. Let me make a distinction. This should not be considered in line of these. Why? Because do you remember by the definition itself, what kind of system we considered when we were discussing these parameters or these energies? Isolated. Okay, these were considered for isolated gaseous atom. That means you are considering only one atom of an element. That means these are the properties associated with the element completely in an isolated form. Do you agree now? At least this is clear, because here I am going to make a distinction when you consider electronegativity. This should not be, because this is the property, it is the property of an element in a molecule. Now we are moving little bit more towards molecule. Anyway, we are going to be moving to chemical bonding. So here I am introducing a parameter, or let's say a property, which is anyway to be discussed for its periodic trend, but I am saying that this is the property of an element. Of course, this is a property of an element, but in a molecule, already formed molecule, not in an isolated gaseous form. So please try to distinguish this versus this. Okay, so electronegativity is simply now, but at least one thing you should keep it in mind, I'm not discussing this property of any element in an isolated form, in its pure atomic form. No, this is the property of an element now in a molecule. So I'm saying that electronegativity of, let's say, carbon bonded with hydrogen and carbon bonded with chlorine, the electronegativity of the same element can be little bit different. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, the electronegativity of carbon bonded to fluorine will be different. So it is not it is definitely related to the type of element, but little bit different because of the already formed bond now. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. So this is the property specifically of an element in a molecule. Now what this property is, okay, let me write down that. So it is basically the relative, I'm starting with the term relative. It's basically a tendency. You can put this word in bracket. Let's say it's a tendency of an element to draw the shared electrons of a bond, of a chemical bond in a molecule. Okay, so it is the tendency of an element in a molecule, tendency of an element to draw the shared electron of a chemical bond in a molecule. Okay, what does it mean? You may have a molecule, for example, these are part of the molecule only. Suppose I talk about methane, or let's say methyl chloride or methyl fluoride. Okay, these are all the molecule. So within this molecule, if you just consider the elemental tendency of this carbon with respect to this hydrogen, that's why the term relative comes. For example, if I just consider the methyl chloride, hydrogen, hydrogen, hydrogen. Okay, now this carbon, when you talk about this electronegativity of this carbon, I would say this carbon has a certain value of electronegativity with respect to this chlorine, because in between these two guys there is a certain tendency, it's like a tug of war happening between these two elements to draw this shared pair of electron, right? This is a covalent molecule here, covalent bond. So chlorine has, we know that the chlorine wins because carbon with respect to chlorine will be little bit positive, correct? Do you agree with this? Carbon with respect to chlorine will be little bit positive. Carbon with respect to chlorine will be little bit positive. So this shared pair of electron will be more drawn towards the chlorine, okay, towards the chlorine. So if you can somehow parameterize this, how much is the power with which this chlorine is drawing the electron towards itself with respect to chlorine, I call that as electronegativity of chlorine. Or how much is the power with which this carbon is able to draw the same pair of electron towards itself, that is what is called electronegativity of carbon with respect to chlorine. Did you follow what I said? So both the element have some value of electronegativity. Of course, one will draw more because it is more powerful. If this did not have any tendency to draw this pair of electron towards itself, this would have been completely only with chlorine. But we know that suppose in a covalent bond, this electron pair is more of a shared between the two and it lies in between the two nucleus. Okay, so here is a tendency of both chlorine and carbon with respect to each other. So in this case, I can say the both carbon and chlorine have certain tendency to draw the shared electrons towards their nucleus, right? So there is a tug of war always, correct? So we understand that what we are talking about right now. Okay. Now, and we know among the carbon and chlorine will be drawing it more powerfully, right? Then if you consider the other bond in the same molecule, carbon and hydrogen bond, for example, compared to hydrogen, carbon is more electronegative. You know that. Do you understand? Hydrogen is more electropositive than carbon. In the periodic table, if you consider these two elements separately, we know that the electronegativity or carbon has more electronegativity than the hydrogen. So in this bond, if you consider, I would say carbon will be more negative. Let me use the another symbol delta prime and here plus delta. Okay, by the way, I am saying plus delta minus delta, these are like partial separation of charges, right? So this kind of separation of charge will happen. In this case also, I would say now carbon has got a certain value of electronegativity with respect to hydrogen. So the electronegativity of the same element could be different here with respect to chlorine, and electronegativity of the same element could be different here with respect to hydrogen. So whenever we talk about the value of electronegativity even within a molecule, it is always with respect to the other element. Please remember this. So now we are talking about the tendency of an element in a molecule for it to draw a shared pair of electron of a chemical bond towards itself. Now there are many ways by which the electronegativity is parameterized, okay, but we will not be discussing because there are more complex ideas associated with those. Right now we are not in a position to discuss for your syllabus, but it will be a little bit more clear when we go to the second chapter of chemical bonding. So here carbon has higher electronegativity compared to that of hydrogen, and here I said carbon is less electronegative than chlorine. Okay, there are factors which will affect even the value of electronegativity in a molecule. So first factor definitely always will be size, just like usual practice, size of the element in a molecule. Of course, now we are considering the size of the element in a molecule. Then definitely charge, the nuclear charge or atomic number of the element, but definitely we are talking in the molecule. You may say, okay, these things are not going to be affected much from the size of an individual isolated element, right? That's fine, but we are still considering these factors in the molecule, in a chemical bond or in a chemical bond. Okay, so these factors will play definitely. Another important factor that comes in this electronegativity value, of an element in a chemical bond is directly proportional to the sum of ionization energy plus electron affinity. You think over this, just spend some time to think over how this is related, and you will be able to make sense of this, because ultimately somehow in an isolated form these carbon has its own ionization potential, isolated form has its own electron gain enthalpy. So ultimately its tendency to draw the electron in this bond with respect to chlorine will also be affected by both of these factors, and actually it is found to be directly proportional to the sum of the two values. Okay, so this is going to be another important factor. The next factor is about type of element, or I should say nature of element and its oxidation number. You understand, or you can say right now the valency. oxidation number, closely related to valency right now. Oxidation number is something not introduced to you, but it will come in redox reaction later. But right now I can say that closely related to charge on an ion. Okay, for example, what it means is, you know that we just talked about metals generally have less electronegativity, right? Metals generally have less electronegative. Why is that? Because we know that they tend to not draw the electron, right? That's the thing. The metal generally tend to lose the electron. So even if in a bond, for example, if we say that there is a bond between carbon and magnesium, this bond exists, a covalent bond. So magnesium will be less electronegative than carbon, because carbon is more powerfully, it will be drawing electron. Okay, and non-metals are more usually electronegative in a bond. This is something that I am talking about right now. Oxidation number, for example, now once an element has acquired a certain charge, for example Fe2 plus, and you know that there exists Fe3 plus also, which one do you think will be more electronegative? Even within the same element, if there are different oxidation number or charge that exists, the charge which is higher positive will tend to draw the electron more powerfully now, right? Because it is more positive compared to this. So this one is more electronegative than this one, right? So this is a relative comparison. Please try to see that. I'm just trying to compare relatively. For example, if you try to say, even for let's say lithium metal, we know that it is electropositive, correct, or it is less electronegative than non-metals. But if you have to compare even within the charge of lithium plus one ion and lithium, we know that this is a positive charge, so this will be more electronegative than lithium, because in a bond it will try to draw the pair of electron more powerfully. Or you can say that fluorine, for example, we know that it is a highly electronegative, but if you once fluorine minus ion is formed, this fluorine minus will be less electronegative than this, because it will now not attract the electron, because it has already more number of electron on it. So these are the factors that you have to consider when you are discussing the electronegativity. And one more last factor is about, now you are talking about the molecule and a bond. So your individual atomic orbital, which you are considering in this case SPDF effect, you will see in chemical bonding chapter, they will no more be just SPDF, but they will be a different form which are derived from SPDF. Okay, so this is something that I am not going to emphasize right now. Don't worry if you don't follow this one right now, but I am saying that more S character, S orbital character in a bond will make element more electronegative than the other bonded element.